Hey everybody, welcome. Looks like everybody's hopping in, so we'll just give it a minute or two. Awesome. Lots of people jumping in. I'm excited. Thanks for being here. Okay. Just give it another minute, and hopefully you guys can see me and hear me. If you can't, just pop it in the questions, or if you have any sort of technical difficulties, let us know so we can troubleshoot that before we get started. Okay, we'll just give it another 30 seconds or so for people to get in. Oh, hi, Ramon. Saying hello from San Francisco. Ramon used to go to my live events in San Francisco, so sending love. Wish you were down in San Diego. All right. Okay, so yeah, we'll just give it another minute, and as people are coming in, feel free to leave your name, and then I always like to ask a question, and today I just want to know why you're interested in the mind, or kind of what brought you here today. So as you're coming in, if you feel like sharing, you can just let us know like why, why you're here, why mindfulness is top of mind for you, and just kind of like what you're working on. All right, we still have people jumping in. I always joke that even though things are virtual now, or a lot more virtual, we're still always running a few minutes late, right? Just human behavior. Okay. All right, I think we can get started in just a second here. So, yeah, and I have run this training before. This is one of my favorite topics, and I've done it live, in person and also virtually. And then I was getting a lot of requests and emails and even some different conversations about doing the training again, or if we have the recording, or yeah, when it's going to be scheduled. And so I figured we would just do this one right before the holiday. And I know we just did one 2 weeks ago. So if any of you were on that call, yeah, thanks for joining us again. And this is going to build on that. But yeah, I figured holidays was a good time for some mindfulness training, right? We are gonna have to go home and be mindful with our families. And I think there's a good Ram Dass quote that says, if you think you're enlightened, go home and spend a week with your family, right? So we know that this is the time to practice that. Okay, hi Taylor from North Dakota. Yes, mine is definitely powerful. Let's see, we have Kendra here to share and learn with our employees. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Feel free to share and, send this to your employees, colleagues, other people in different groups that you're in. I love the sharing, and it's always great to just have as many people learning what this is possible. That's the mission, right? Okay. All right, let's see if there's any more. Karen started meditating regularly and like to gain information again. Yes, great. Amazing. And that's so beautiful. I love to hear somebody started a meditation practice and now we want to keep it going, right? We want to keep the momentum up, make it sustainable. And often that's where a lot of people fall off, just like going to the gym. You're starting strong and then you might lose some momentum. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna close the control panel for me and the questions, and I have Sky on who is going to kind of moderate for me. And so if you guys have questions that come up throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them here in the questions area, and Sky can kind of hop in and let me know, and then we can get them answered for you. And that just works best to kind of keep me on track, and then she can come in when the timing is right. Okay. All right, thanks for being here. So let me close that. All right. So again, this is part of the mindfulness training series. I know we usually do these about once a month, but we're doubling up and we just did one 2 weeks ago. So thanks for being here. And yeah, I'm excited to get started. Oh, let's see if we can get this to go. All right. So of course, today we're talking about how to successfully meditate, right? A lot of us know how to meditate, but we're going to talk about how to successfully and sustainably meditate. And this is always based on neuroscience and psychology. This is a lot of the work that I do. I want it to always be grounded in that science and of course in the psychology, tying those pieces together so we can create something that is really meaningful and becomes part of your daily life. All right, so who am I? For those of you who don't know, I'm a mindset coach, I'm an NLP practitioner, and I founded Self by Design. I also do mindfulness training, as you know, based on this series and the corporate trainings that I do. And I work with a lot of executives, managers, entrepreneurs, and I help them change their mindset, right? So usually in business settings, we're changing the strategy, or we're just, yeah, we're working on kind of the business side of things, but often we're not looking at the mindset that we're using. And my focus and my difference, and where I found I can make the most change, is focusing on the subconscious mind. And so this is the area of the mind where all of your beliefs, your habits, your emotions, all of those really powerful drivers are living. And often we are consciously aware of what's not working in our life or what we want to change, but the subconscious mind is really driving it. And so I really focus heavily on getting into those programs, habits, emotions, patterns, and really changing those structures in a business setting and also in a personal setting. And so, as I mentioned, I created the Self by Design method. A lot of that is in this mindfulness training series. A lot of it's in my coaching, obviously. And I fuse neuroscience, psychology, and spirituality together to master the power of our minds, because I feel like those disciplines are often not communicating with each other. And I feel it's also part of my mission to really sync those different areas and disciplines together so we can create a really powerful transformation for ourselves and for the world around us. All right. So, and I love to say, this is kind of a little mantra, but we all have a mind, right? And I started a lot of my trainings with this, but most of us have gone our entire lives without really understanding how to use it, right? Like we don't even have really much in high school or even elementary school, and it'd be most powerful when we're really learning, where we really learn and understand the mind and emotion and behavior. And I just really feel that now a lot of us are kind of operating our lives and not having this understanding and awareness and knowing how powerful this tool really can be. So what led me to this mission and kind of my own personal story is I was physically, emotionally, mentally unwell for at least a decade, if not 15 years. And I just really struggled to show up in my life in relationships, in career, of course, with my health and a lot of different areas. And I had gone the traditional medicine route for an extremely long time and really had a lot of doctors, tell me different things and send me different directions. And then I finally went the naturopathic route and got some holistic help and made some progress there, definitely, but always was kind of hitting a wall and always was not able to really break out of those patterns and into this kind of new way of being and really become well, heighten my well-being, right? And so my biggest kind of crash, or sometimes people call it like a rock bottom, was I was living in New York City. I'd been living there for 7 years and I was just, depressed and not feeling well and not really having much direction. And I decided to just change everything pretty quickly, move to Los Angeles. And when I got to Los Angeles, I was away from family, friends, and everyone that, I had known in the life that I had already built. And I think that that just pulled me out of my whole environment. And I had a lot of time to introspect. I had a lot of alone time. And there I became extremely aware that a lot of what was keeping me stuck or unwell was these patterns and these programs and these negative beliefs that I was holding and my negative, inner dialogue and even sense of identity. And so I reached out for support. And from there, I just turned this corner and got better within about a year, just learning about the mind and working on those different patterns and structures, in my own life. And then I made it my mission to really just share that with others. So I went back to school at Stanford and studied neuroscience, listed some of the areas here. I went back and studied psychology, so different patterns, CBT. I did mindfulness-based stress reduction training, so did some mindfulness training, and then also reconnected to my sense of spirituality. And I know this can mean something different for everyone, and I always just say it's just your connection to your higher purpose, your vision, your values, and kind of your creativity and self-expression, right? It's just the truest, highest sense of self. And so, yeah, and that leads me to kind of what we're talking about today, which is that meditation piece. This was a big piece of my journey. It's something that I do every day, and it's something that I support people in doing in private coaching and in corporate training just about every day as well. So, yes, and I always say that meditation, we all know we should be doing it, but we're not, right? It's just like a lot of, physical exercise, whatever it is, all of the great things. You've seen all these infographics online. Maybe you're on Instagram, maybe you're getting them an email or Facebook or whatever, and there's benefits, but there's a reason we're not doing it, right? We all want to be like this good looking gal sitting on the beach with all of her chakras aligned, just in pure bliss, right? So I want to kind of talk about bringing it home and into your lifestyle, because again, just going back to this image, a lot of the times we see this beautiful image of somebody meditating on this great beach and they're just in paradise, but we want to bring it into our daily lives and affect ourselves, and of course affect all those around us and those relationships that we hold so highly and dearly. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to kind of run through these 5 different steps. And I always like to say that meditation is mental fitness, right? So I would even say, like, in the 60s and 70s, there was a huge push for physical fitness, right? And people just getting back in the gyms, and all of a sudden there's all these workout videos and like workout celebrities, right? Well, now I think we're ushering in the era of mental fitness. And so I kind of want to draw that parallel. And I think that really helps a lot of people understand the importance of this and the ability for us to make this part of our lifestyles as well. So I want to start with explaining the science behind it and the impact on its overall health and well-being, because I know for me, when I understand the science behind something, then it really makes sense for me, and it's much more applicable than somebody just saying you should meditate or meditation is good for you, right? I want to have some data and statistics and then tie that with some anecdotal stories and other just references, and that's the most powerful change for me. And then we're going to understand the different types of meditation and find a style that works for you. So this is so important. We're going to dive into this. And then we're going to identify your why for meditating. So what's your purpose? Why are you even showing up today? And why do you have this intention to meditate? And we're going to create that motivation to keep you moving through it. And then we're going to talk about changing your identity. So I want you to stay with me on this one. Again, this is a big piece of my work, but this is a area that we're really going to dive into. And then we're going to talk about designing a morning routine, or what I like to say, a ritual that supports this practice, that keeps it in motion and keeps you showing up daily to put this into place. All right, so let's start with the neuroscience behind things. And I always like to say this is a 45-year-old study, right? Because we as humans love to act like we've just invented neuroscience, and it's a pretty fairly new study of the actual brain, but the ancient areas of our lives, or the ancient, I guess, civilizations have been studying this for thousands of years, and we are just kind of putting it into practice now and bringing it back into mainstream culture. Oops, heading the wrong way. All right, and then I just want to say this first about mind training. So if you're really new to meditation, and I just kind of wanted to put this out there, that we are really just training our mind to become aware of our thoughts. Meditation at its most simplest form is just creating that awareness, and then you're not judging those thoughts that are coming up or attaching to them. You're just recognizing them and kind of holding space for them to come up. And really, that is meditation in its simplest form. We're going to get into the different styles, but that is it. And I think we overcomplicate it in a lot of ways. And I had put this quote up in my last training, so if you're in it, you might recognize it. But Pema Chodron has this quote where she says that you are the whole sky and your thoughts are just like passing clouds, right? So you can think about that. You are the awareness, you're the sky, or you're the ocean, however you want to put that into your mind, but those thoughts are just clouds or just waves, like they're just moving through, and you are kind of holding the space and being that witness to it. And so it's really just attention training. We're training our attention, which is something that is so valuable today and also just so in demand in so many different areas of our lives. And I also just want to talk about a little bit, we'll get into this, but the brain regions that are activated with meditation are the same regions that reduce stress, anxiety, and depression, right? So it's really powerful for us to keep activating these areas, because we want to take kind of the focus away from the anxiety and depression areas of the brain, which we often can live in, especially if we have some challenges in those areas, and we want to move them into the meditation, areas of the brain and mind. And I always say this, 15 to 20 minutes of practice is all you need. if you can only start with 5, then absolutely that's 1,000% better than none, right? But really, a lot of us think we need to be meditating for an hour a day. Or I, recently moved from the Bay Area, and it was a big thing there. A lot of people kind of claiming that they would meditate for several hours a day or do these 10-day silent retreats. You don't need that to have the results, right? 15 to 20 minutes a day is really all you need to have exponential results and shifts in your own life. All right, so let's get to the data on this. So this is a study that was run by a neuroscientist that I love and follow closely. He actually works here at UCSD in San Diego, which is not very far from where I'm living currently. And he did a study with 2,500 students over the course of 6 weeks. And they studied their mind on mindfulness meditation. And all they were doing, again, was 15 to 20 minutes a day of this mindfulness meditation. So that's the style that they were using. And then they measured them again. And across the board, it showed decreases in stress, tension, depression, decreases in their fatigue if they had complaints about fatigue, overall confusion, so more mental clarity, and then just overall mood and well-being, right? So again, we've all heard this, but I just wanted you to really see that there's data behind this. There's real studies behind this that show that meditation has a real shift and a positive effect on the brain and the body. And then I wanted to highlight this because this is definitely something that a lot of people share with me, especially in my private coaching, of course, even in the trainings, that we're struggling with anxiety, right? And it's especially during the pandemic, even post-pandemic, there's a lot of anxiety going on. And so I wanted to kind of highlight this chart and show that the results of that same study showed a 22% decrease in daily anxiety. And so that's a significant decrease, right? That would make a big difference in your days and the way that you're showing up for your conversations, for your family, etc. So I thought that was a really powerful, chart to see as well. Okay, so I wanted to also bring up some brain scans and show you a little bit about mindfulness meditation and how that, anxiety is shifted, and so you can actually see it in a brain scan, right? This is kind of like the real nerdy, nitty-gritty science, but again, I love that we can actually see this and we actually have scans and data that represent this. So the brain on the left is a functional MRI, a cross-section of the brain, where they're looking at somebody who's experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety pre-meditation, right? And so a lot of the areas of the brain that are lit up are the amygdala, are the kind of more primal parts of the brain, right? Because if you're in fight or flight, you have to send blood to that really primal part of yourself, and you have to be able to move out of that danger situation, right? Like if you want to go back to even more primal times, if we were being chased by a lion or tiger, and I know this is an example that we often use, that you're not going to be thinking, okay, how fast is the tiger moving? Like, where do I need to be? What am I going to eat for dinner later, right? You're not going to be thinking of anything else besides getting out of that situation. And so your brain is pumping that blood and that oxygen and those nutrients to that primal area of the brain. Well, when we are in anxiety and stress and even, depression, like areas where we're feeling pain and we're feeling discomfort, our brain and our body is signaling that you're not safe and we need to send blood flow, we need to send resources to that area. And so what meditation does, which is the scan on the right, is it takes that blood flow intentionally and moves it to the prefrontal cortex. And so that's the front of the brain here. I think, can you see my, I guess you can't see my mouse. Maybe you can see it, but that's the front of the brain here. And so when we're meditating, we are intentionally putting our focus and our attention on that higher, more executive functioning of the brain, and we are moving oxygen and resources there, right? So if you're visualizing or you're practicing mindfulness and awareness, then you're moving the blood flow to those areas of the brain. And the more that you can do that, this is something you learn a lot about in neuroscience, the more that pattern is created, right? The more, it's called neuroplasticity, where you're making a change in the brain and you're kind of paving this new pathway to say, hey, instead of living in this fight or flight, in this, darker area of the brain, more primal brain, we're going to live here. And the more you do it, the more it's going to be just the default and just your normal way of operating in your new baseline. Is there any questions or anything coming up? I know I usually move pretty fast. Okay, so this is a quote, and if you guys have been in my previous trainings, you've seen this as well, and I love it, and I always want to keep reiterating, but no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it, right? Our good old Albert Einstein. And I really feel like this just complements that brain scan really well, right? You're not going to be able to solve problems when you're stuck in that fight or flight, but moving that blood flow, those resources, your attention to those higher sources of the mind, that allows us to access creativity and insights and innovations. And that is why you often hear of somebody talking about, oh, you know, I just kind of sat in silence for 10 minutes, or I did a meditation maybe even, and they all of a sudden have the answer come to them. Well, it's because they've taken themselves out of that stressful fight or flight and moved themselves into a higher state and been able to access the new resources and the new insights. Okay, this is the last study? No, second to last study, and our sciencey part of the masterclass. So I wanted to highlight this too. This was a fascinating study. I read a whole book on monks' brains and how they changed during meditation because I was so fascinated. Couldn't put all the data in here. I actually did also do a conference where they talked just literally specifically about this, but this was one of the most fascinating ones that I had discovered. And they did a 14-year study of a monk's brain. And so they compared him with, I think it was 60 other individuals that they had studied over these 14 years. So that's a huge study. Usually it's really hard to run a study of that period of time. And he was 27 years old when they started. And over that time period, he did 60,000 hours of meditation. So obviously we're not going to be doing that much meditation, but I think the results are really phenomenal because when they measured him at 41, so from 27 to 41, he had the gray matter. So just that prefrontal cortex, right? That area where we want to be sending oxygen, resources, blood flow. He had the gray matter of a 33-year-old. So really his brain hadn't aged much. And the other people in the study, they hadn't really shown much of a significant difference in aging, right? Their brain had aged about what it should for somebody that wasn't really practicing meditation. So I always just kind of like to reiterate, of course, we're not going to be doing 60,000 hours, but it just shows that this really helps the health of your brain, which helps the health of your body, reduces stress levels, and it's just this full on cyclical change for your body and mind. Okay, and so for the last study, I just want to talk about pain management because this is something that also comes up a lot in different trainings and sessions, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. But this is addressing physical pain specifically, which they do show that physical and emotional pain light up similar areas in the brain. And so the patient that was studied, they showed him in, well, multiple patients, but let's say this is obviously one person's brain, in a restful state. And they put their hands on these hot bricks almost, where, of course, not hot enough to burn them, but where you would be experiencing pain, right? And so these individuals, their brain was very lit up in that area. So they were experiencing some pain. Their brain is going off, again, that fight or flight, like, hey, something's not right. Then they put them into a deep meditative state and let them, kind of stay in there, move those resources around, move their attention. Then they came out of the meditation and went back into testing the hot surfaces, and the blood flow was significantly reduced. So it just shows your ability to manage pain, whether it's emotional or physical, is greatly improved or increased when you're practicing meditation. And I just thought that was really powerful for everyone to see how that can help with pain management. Okay, so now next time you see one of these infographics, whatever you want to call it, this data chart, then you'll know, okay, sure, there's science behind that, right? Like there's real studies, there's real findings, there's real information that we can apply to our lives instead of just, you should be meditating and here's a little graphic on the benefits of it. Okay, so now I just want to get into style over expertise. And this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, especially in the kind of mindfulness industry and mindfulness circles. We often think that mindfulness is just one type of meditation, just sitting there in silence and breathing, right? But that is definitely not the case, and I want to work to debunk that myth. So I want to talk to people about doing what works for you. And we've already got this down for physical fitness, right? We do what works for us. There's so many different forms of physical fitness. There's yoga, there's dancing, there's Pilates, boxing, weightlifting, running, hiking, biking, swimming, surfing, of course, every type of different sport. And then within these categories, there's obviously subcategories, right? There's different types of yoga, there's different types of dance, there's different types of weightlifting or running. And so there's just so many avenues that we discover and that we practice in physical fitness, and we're very comfortable with that. But when it comes to meditation, we often just think of the traditional mindfulness meditation and we're not aware of the different styles. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Oops, a little too far. Okay, so I highlighted the top meditation styles. There's even more than this, and of course there's subcategories just like there is in physical fitness, but we're going to talk through each of them so you can hopefully find one that resonates with you and that you can apply and keep sustainable in your own life and make it enjoyable, because that is the biggest piece for you showing up for it every day. So we have mindfulness, focus attention, and I'm going to go into each of these, but I just want to kind of highlight them. Loving kindness, which is often called a metta meditation. Vipassana, which is your traditional body scan. Transcendental, which is a mantra meditation. Then we have visualization, breath work, movement meditation, music, which is often not included, but I think is highly meditative. And I just put, you can choose guided versus unguided, right? So you can just sit in silence and do this yourself, or you can choose a guided meditation from an app or a website, or even with a practitioner, whatever that is. Okay, so mindfulness. This is the front runner right now. This is the one that we often hear about. And really mindfulness is focused attention. So you're fully focused on the now, right? And you're just being present with your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, any sensations that are coming up, and you're just getting curious about it and non-judgmental, right? And you're just kind of focusing on staying in that state. And often the way that we do that is by coming back to the breath. So in mindfulness meditation, we'll focus on the breath to come home to not really buying into those thoughts or those emotional states or those other ways of being that we're usually spending most of our days in. All right, so loving kindness metta meditation. This one is a little bit less well known, but equally as powerful. And in this form of meditation, you're really just sending love, compassion, empathy to yourself, number one. This is something that a lot of us need to practice, and to others. And you kind of focus on sending that love outward, and then you can often, the second part of the meditation will be receiving that love and empathy and compassion from others. So you're really just staying in this very loving, connecting space. And, you know, as woo-woo as that can sound, it is extremely powerful for deepening your relationships, deepening your sense of self, your self-love, right? All of those pieces. So this is a great one to practice, and something that I often practice in my own meditations. Okay, Vipassana body scan. I would say this is probably the second most popular. This is really gaining some traction for good reason, especially with a lot of the anxiety going on. And Vipassana is traditionally from the Buddhist traditions, and you're really just observing yourself and kind of the sensations that are coming up in your body. So you're focusing on your just each of those sensations and how they're manifesting in your body, and you're trying to stay with that the whole time. So often if it's guided, you'll be kind of going to each part of the body and exploring what's there for you. And this can be extremely powerful if you're a very kind of heady person and you're always thinking too much, right? Ruminating, or you're feeling very anxious, just to kind of get back in the body and ground yourself with what is really coming up and being fully with that experience. Okay, so transcendental, I'm having trouble talking today. Mantra meditation. So this is just choosing a specific mantra or a thought. So you could say, it could be an affirmation, it could be a belief that you want to change, it could just be something you're grateful for. Whatever it is, it's just usually a very short mantra or saying that you're coming home to, and you focus on this instead of focusing on the breath. and you just continually come back to it if you start to stray away. And so that again is training the mind to not chase the thoughts, chase the emotions, and chase itself in kind of a a certain sense, but just coming home to that mantra. All right, so visualization. So this is extremely powerful as well, and you're really just using your imagination to paint vivid images, ideas. Often people use symbols that elicit positive emotions and create these new neural networks. So a lot of times we'll use visualization if you're working towards a goal or an aspiration, or you just are imagining a new version of yourself, right? I use visualization a lot in private coaching with clients because they'll have a goal, they'll have a dream, they'll have something that they want to work towards. But unless we really see it and create these powerful images, we can't really feel it and then move towards it. So it can be extremely powerful for that kind of intention and keeping that motivation alive. All right, so breath work. This one's a little bit more alternative, and I wanted to include it though because I believe it is a high form of meditation and something that I will often recommend if somebody is really just not able to meditate in the traditional sense. Breath work is an active breathing meditation. So instead of just sitting there and focusing on more of the natural rhythms of your breath, you're intentionally creating these breathing patterns that elicit different sensations and even different images in your mind for you, and staying with that. Often this is instructor led. I know there's a ton of information and resources online for you to visit and learn about breathwork meditation, but this is something that can really shift a lot for people, especially if you're struggling with traditional meditation. And this is another one that I like to include, and will often recommend this if you're struggling with the regular kind of original style of meditation. So that would be a movement meditation. So really it's any form of meditation that connects the mind and body in a focused and intentional way while engaging in physical movement. So I would include yoga as a movement meditation, right? Yoga is an extremely powerful form of meditation. Obviously, it's been practiced for thousands of years, and you are moving through that and staying with the awareness of your body and your thoughts and those different sensations. Walking is often a moving meditation, and I have some walking meditations that I give people, especially again, if you're struggling with it. Like, you don't have to sit here cross-legged and just breathe, right? You can move, you can be up, you can be even just standing and meditating makes a big difference. Dancing, I would definitely include as a meditation. And if you're intentional about it and you're just kind of staying with what you're doing and how you're moving your body, and even running. So often I'll have people come to me and say, oh, I don't meditate, I've never really meditated before, but then we find out they're a marathon runner. And I'm like, well, what are you doing when you're running? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to your thoughts? And often they'll just listen to their breath or listen to their thoughts, or maybe even music. And it is a form of meditation, right? Because you're removing yourself from the daily activities of the mind and the chatter of the mind, and you're focusing just on that activity while you're moving through it. Okay, and then the last one, oh, I did a double click there, but you already got my little graph. So music or sound meditation. And so this is definitely a little more alternative and, definitely different from what we traditionally hear about, but this is also very powerful where we can use instruments or different vibrations and sounds. And often, if you've ever heard of like a sound bath or the Tibetan singing bowls, they have tuning forks. And what these do is they change brainwave activity and can calm the nervous system or even heighten it, whichever way you want to go. And they kind of sync with those brainwaves and those pathways. So I always say binaural beats is a good solution for this. There's apps for binaural beats. They're online. I think even Spotify has playlists now for binaural beats. And classic piano can also be a really high sound meditation, because they've shown that the brain waves can change and sync to the classic pianist form of music and be extremely powerful. And so I wanted to bring up this little chart here and just show you that often with binaural beats or any form of sound meditation, we're syncing to those brain waves and that area of the brain that you would most like to be in. So if you're feeling more anxious and you're in a higher state, you're going to be more in gamma or even beta, where you're in this heightened, your nervous system is kind of more dialed up, and you would want to do a sound meditation that brings you back into these lower layers of alpha and theta where you're feeling more relaxed, or vice versa, right? You don't want to listen to these low vibration, slower sounds if you want to feel more focused or more attentive or productive or whatever it is. You want to move into these higher brain waves. Okay, and then I just want to end with this. So you can always choose guided versus unguided. I still do guided meditations, right? With all of the training and leading meditations and everything, I will still often get on Insight Timer in the morning. That's my favorite app, and find a new meditation and listen to it because it feels good and it gives me new insights and it gives me a new way of practicing and being. So you can always do this guided. And here are some resources. Insight Timer, Headspace is another good one. Calm, those are the big ones. Or even just YouTube, right? If you don't want to download an app or even pay for an app, you can get on YouTube and find a ton of great meditations and resources to keep you in that practice and keep you seeing progress. All
Nicole?
right. Yep.
Yeah, so I actually had a question. So you're saying how different sounds work as meditation. Would you say that like ASMR works into that as well, or would you say that's something different?
So what is ASMR? I'm not sure what that is.
Oh yeah, so ASMR is kind of hard to explain, but like people listen to like sometimes people like eating pickles or like tapping the mic or like making brushing sounds like on the mic,
Yes.
and they're usually whispering. A lot of them go viral for that, and it's because it usually helps people kind of relax. So I was wondering if you thought maybe you went into a similar meditative state when watching ASMR as you do with like the tuning bells and other things you were talking about.
Yes, I have seen this. This is really big on YouTube, right? Those videos. I know there's full channels dedicated to that. And yeah, I would definitely just say that's just a way of calming the nervous system, right? Those sounds are usually more slow. They're going to sync to slower brain waves. It's going to be a little more sensory deprivation if you're just focusing on that sound and you're not thinking about all the other things that are going on in your life or different sounds and different frequencies coming in. If you're listening to something a little more, higher like frequency and sound, like a whatever, like you're at a concert or you're listening to a compilation on your phone or something. So yeah, I definitely think that that would fall into sound meditation, and there's definitely a reason why that's gaining a lot of traction and a lot of popularity. So I think there's definitely something there. Good question. Let's see, I'm going to check real quick to see if there's anything else coming up. Okay. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to talk about identifying your why. And this is a really, really important piece and often one that we miss, right? We often say like, hey, I'm meditating, or I want to start meditating, or whatever that is. But before we do anything, I always want to know what's your why. And I want you to identify this so you can come home to it when you start to fall off the practice, or when you start to question if you're seeing results or whatever that is. We always want to come home to what your why is. Oops. Going the wrong way. Okay. And again, if you've been in my trainings before, great. Thank you for coming. I always show this graph because it's so powerful. I use this in all of my trainings and with all of my clients. And so this is often known as levels of change or even neurological levels of change. And what it is kind of like a hierarchy of how we make change in our lives. And often we're starting at those lower levels, right? So we're working on our environment or what's around us, like our physical environment, or trying to change a behavior. Like I'm going to stop, eating so much, or I'm going to stop saying this or doing this, right? You're trying to change a behavior at that level and you're trying to just stop doing that thing. Or you're working on capabilities. I want to have this different skill set, or I want to be better at this. And then we're moving into values and beliefs. So we're getting into more of the subconscious mind in these higher areas. So of course, that's what you value and what you believe about yourself and the world around you. And then your identity. So this is the highest, most powerful level of change of who you are and who you're being, right? And so we're often working, I always want to get my mouse going, but down here at these lower levels, when we really want to be working in these higher levels of identity and your values and beliefs. And again, those are living in your subconscious mind, because those cascade down to the lower levels and change those capabilities, behaviors, and even your environment instead of doing it in reverse. And let me tell you, obviously I've learned this the hard way, but it's much easier to focus at the identity and values and beliefs level than it is to try and change a behavior or even change your environment and do everything very externally. But your why comes in at this top little triangle here for your purpose, right? So what's driving this change? What's going to be your direction and your leader for this change? And that is going to be your purpose. So this is just literally from working with people and doing this training and other similar ones. And I just kind of want to give you some ideas of some reasons to meditate. And also feel free, now that I'm thinking about it, you can put in the questions area if you have your own reason for meditation or you're thinking about it now as I'm talking through some of these and getting some ideas. And then we can read some of them out loud at the end of the presentation. But a lot of the reasons or the common ones that I hear for people wanting to meditate or starting meditation is developing their spiritual connection. They want more self-discovery, or they want to get back into self-awareness. So noticing those thoughts and behavioral patterns so they can make changes to those behavioral thoughts and patterns. Increased focus and productivity, of course, that's a big one among corporations and businesses. Reducing negative states, so reducing depression, anxiety, anger, frustration, a lot of what we just talked about that those studies showed, and mental clarity. So even for me, I've been using meditation to be a better speaker, right? I want to be a better speaker, a better presenter, a better communicator. You could be working on being an author, whatever that is, however you want to show up in a form of kind of mental clarity could be your why. Or even physical effects. There's obviously a lot of changes to the mind, which always cascade again down to those behaviors in the more physical sense of the world and sense of self and change your body. So maybe you want to just have less tension in your body or less pain or even lose some weight by reducing stress in the mind. You can do that with meditation. Or cultivating creativity. So just fostering better insights, ideas, innovations. And a big one that I often hear, I probably should move this towards the top, is better relationships, right? We all want better relationships with everyone around us and a better relationship with ourselves. So that could be some of your whys and kind of your reasoning for showing up to meditation every day. And I would encourage you to write that down and just come home to it either right before you meditate or the night before, so you know that you're gonna get up in the morning if you do your meditation then, and really just remember why you're doing this and the intention behind things. Okay, and so I just actually included this in the masterclass. This is a new part because I think I've run this quite a few times and I've had this question come up every single time. So I'm often asked, how do we match these meditation styles to our why, right? So if you're working on stress or anxiety or physical changes or whatever that is, what meditation styles are best? And so I was kind of anticipating it's going to come up in the end. And so we'll cover it now. And this is just some, a little bit of ideas. Of course, I can get deeper into this if you still have questions. But mindfulness meditation is often really great if you're having racing thoughts, if you're ruminating, if you're working on the monkey mind. Of course, it's something a lot of us talk about. I know Ramon has mentioned that in a few master classes, working on the monkey mind. And if you're having attention or focus challenges, right? Mindfulness meditation is so, so powerful. And I really feel like that's why it's so beneficial and popular in our society right now, because so many of us are struggling with these challenges. Loving kindness meditation, often I will prescribe this in a way or suggest this if you're having harsh judgment of yourself and others. And so this is why this is something I included in my meditation practice. I can be very perfectionist, kind of type A personality, right? And have a lot of judgment. And when I recognize that that's coming up, I know that I'm judging myself and I'm also projecting that and judging others, even if it's unconsciously. And so I will come home to this loving kindness meditation, and that helps me remove the judgment of myself and of others and have that reconnection, foster that self-compassion, that self-love. And even if you're working on healing a relationship, loving kindness can be extremely powerful for that. Vipassana is really good for anxiety. So that's usually the first place I go for anxiety if we're going to build a routine with meditation in place. And you just really want to get back in your body. So usually with anxiety, you feel it in the body, but you're mostly in your mind. It's starting in the mind. And so we want to get back in the body and really feel it in a way and see how it's manifesting and then release that. Also for racing thoughts, right? Again, monkey mind, like anything where we want to just get back in the body and feel our sensations, or if we're experiencing any sort of kind of emotional dysregulation, this is a great meditation for that. Okay, transcendental, so that mantra meditation. So that's really similar to the mindfulness benefits, because instead of focusing on the breath, right, we're focusing on a mantra, and we're just keeping our mind very focused on that mantra, and we're training it to not stray and not, create all types of crazy stories and send us all sorts of directions. Visualization, I know I mentioned this earlier, but anything with goal planning, if you're working on creating a new future for yourself, often we call this manifesting, right, in coaching or in online has gotten to be a popular term. So we'll use visualization for that if you're creating something new and you haven't seen it or felt it yet. Breath work can be very releasing. So if you're struggling with anger or you're feeling really frustrated, I will often return to a breathwork meditation or kind of prescribe that, or any sort of emotional release where there feels like there's something that's kind of stuck that needs to be moved through the body. Breathwork can be a really great, almost kind of like purification and movement process. And also if you're feeling low energy and you want to bring some vitality, right? Because breathwork, you're moving that energy and you're bringing a lot of resources, oxygen into the body. So you're kind of stimulating the body to move into a new state. And then movement meditation, again, if you're looking for more physical effects, or if you're really struggling with doing the sitting meditations and doesn't feel good for you, I would recommend that. And also for anxiety, right? Often anxiety, don't want to sit still. Your like body wants to move. I've been there a lot. And so you can go for a walk, you can go to yoga, you can go for a run, or depression as well. And anxiety and depression to me are two sides of the same coin. And often in depression, you're not moving, right? You're feeling depressed, you're feeling low. And so a movement meditation would get things kind of moving in a good and healthy direction. And then again, for music or the sound meditation, that could help with creativity. So obviously a lot of artists use music to elicit creativity. Those binaural beats can help with sleep improvements or relaxation time, or even attention and focus. Like I said, if you want to move into those higher areas of the brain, you can use higher sound waves or more stimulating sound to move into that brain state and be able to be attentive and productive in your days. Any questions coming up for that? I don't know if
Yeah, someone wanted to know if meditation can help in overcoming fear.
yeah, absolutely. And I think for that, I would probably recommend a visualization, and a visualization in a way where you feel very safe, in your surroundings and yourself. Of course, you're in meditation, but you're putting yourself almost like exposure therapy in that situation where you're feeling fear and you're moving through it the way that you would imagine, and you're focusing on what you want. So often when we have fear, we focus very much on the situation or the outcome and what we don't want, and then we kind of keep recreating that. And so a visualization would allow you to focus on what you want and how you want to change that situation. So when it's active in your real life, you can show up differently and move differently through that experience. I hope that answers your question. Anything else coming up? Oh, hopping around. Okay. All right, so the second to the last piece, so changing your identity, again, in my mind, I'm a little biased, this is the work I do, but the most powerful piece. So you want to become it before you're actually doing it, right? So mentally, we want to create that visual, that picture, change our identity before it's in our outward reality. I just wanted to bring this back up again. So here we're working at this top layer of identity. So we're in the subconscious, that's where that's living, but we're really focusing in that area to cascade down to those values and beliefs, which I always say are kind of the table or the table legs to holding up the identity, and then down to capabilities, behaviors, and environment. So you could ask yourself, how does a meditator show up? And I will do this with anything that somebody's working on, right? And I used the example last masterclass, how does a surfer show up? So if you want to be a surfer, what are you doing? How are you showing up in the morning? What are you thinking, right? And so how does a meditator show up? Doesn't snooze the alarm and miss meditation time. I put guilty because this is something I've worked on for a long time. I'm much better, but I still kind of go back to that once in a while, right? Eats a clean and nourishing breakfast. So maybe you're meditating, you're taking care of your mind. You also want to be taking care of your body and keeping your whole system clear. You believe in the benefits of meditation. So you're attending webinars and things like this, you're taking classes, you're doing your research, whatever that is, you know about the benefits of meditation. And you stay aware and mindful throughout your day. So you're staying as conscious as possible, making note of your behaviors and the choices that you're making, or you have a meditation corner designed for your meditation. So I have a little area in my home with a little meditation mat and just some different things to keep me in that headspace and know like, hey, I'm a meditator. If somebody comes over, they know, oh, like you do meditation. Here's your little area where it happens. And I just put this in here too if you just want to have kind of fun with it. I said crystals, tarot cards, beads, braids, whatever it is you need to do, step into that identity first as a meditator, and then it will become more your reality instead of saying, I'm trying to meditate, I'm learning meditation, I'm doing my best, whatever it is. No, you are a meditator. If you're attending this webinar with intention, if you've set the practice in place, you are now a meditator. So show up that way first. And I put these questions here too. You can ask yourself, or even do a little journaling session. So how does this person show up and act every day? What do they believe? And then finally, what rituals and routines has this version of you committed to? And that brings us to our last piece, which is designing a ritual. And I always like to say rituals over routines, and a ritual that will set you free and keep you in this sustainable practice. Oops. We hopped around. Okay. And why I like to say rituals over routines and what the difference is often a routine can feel really stale and stagnant, right? I tried for so long. I am like anti-routine gal. And I tried for so long to put routines in place and then would always just rebel against them and not stick to it because it just felt very militant and confining. But once I learned about rituals and adding that new layer of intention and creativity, it changed everything for me. And so a routine might be, let's say you're setting the table every night for your family, right? And you just put the dishes on the table and that's your routine. But making it a ritual would be you pull out these beautiful plates that you're using, and maybe you add a bouquet of flowers, and maybe you all say something about your day when you sit down at the dinner table. Whatever that is, you're creating a ritual and something that feels celebratory and creative over just the routine, mundane task of setting dishes on the table and everybody sit down and eat your meal, right? So we want to create a ritual often in the morning. You can even do this at night, that keeps that meditation practice enjoyable and sustainable. And so I created this little template. I share this with all of my clients and in my trainings as well. And I like to call it Move, Meditate, Mindset. And so I do this every morning. I've done it for years now, where you can either do 5, 5, 5 of each. So that'd be 15 minutes total. That's all you need in the morning, 10, 10, 10, or 20, 20, 20. And so you just kind of create this little template for yourself. And within those areas, you're plugging in movement, which could be yoga, stretching, dancing, even just taking a morning walk, something just to get your body moving. You're not working out here or doing some rigorous fitness. You're really just getting the blood flowing and things moving. And then I like to have people go into a meditation. And this is very powerful for me because you have the blood flow and the oxygen and even kind of your attention moving and your energy moving, and then you go into that guided meditation, whether it's just an app or you're just practicing gratitude and being thankful for what you have, or even some type of prayer could be plugged into this area. And then I always do, for me, I do about 20, 20, 20 now, but 20 minutes of mindset. So you could be journaling, you could be reinstating affirmations, you could be revisiting a vision board that you've created for yourself, or you could be reading or just listening to an empowering audiobook or podcast, right? Something that just kind of primes your mind for the day and says like, this is who I'm showing up as, or this is how I'm feeling inspired and motivated, and just keeping that practice in your daily life so you are showing up as the best version of yourself. Okay, and then the last thing I'll say is just, this is that, everyone to cooperate with me. So just give yourself time and love, right? And so often when we try something new, like a new meditation practice, or yeah, learning to surf, or starting a new business, or whatever that is, get we get kind of hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up, and we don't give ourselves that compassion and that love and that space to really create this new pathway and this new version of yourself. So just give yourself time and just keep coming home to non-judgment, staying curious, and keeping your practice sustainable, and you will see shifts sooner than later, and your internal life will change, and then of course that shifts your external life and all of those relationships and everything around you. So awesome. I just wanted to say that. And yeah, thank you for showing up today. I also want to just talk quickly about the Mindfulness Leadership Institute. So we just closed the cohort for January. I'm excited to run that. And I believe the next one is going to be early March. And so if you're interested in that, you can hop on my website. I'll share it here, or send me an email. And this is just a tiny piece of that whole training where we move through building a foundation of mindfulness. So kind of a lot of the pieces we talked about today, but creating those rituals and routines, moving to the identity and beliefs layer, getting into that subconscious mind, then learning how to regulate your emotions, communicate effectively and mindfully, and then we tie that into leadership in your personal and professional life. So it is a extremely powerful learning experience and an extremely powerful way to move through your life after learning these tools and changing your mindset for the better. And I just wanted to
Nicole?
thank, oh, sorry.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, no, I just wanted to say there was another question that came in.
Oh, sure.
Someone wants to know whenever I go into an anxiety state, my stomach gets affected first and I feel really cramped up. How can I soothe myself during these situations? I recommended watching your EFT tapping video because I thought that was really relevant, but maybe meditation, you see a way that that works in as well.
Yeah, EFT can be really good. Yeah, EFT is a way, emotional freedom technique, for those of you that don't know, is a way of just kind of allowing that emotion to come up, because we talked about this in another webinar. You never want to bypass that emotion, right? If you're feeling anxiety and then it's moving to your stomach, then feel it, right? Like let it come up. You don't want to bypass that stage and be like, no, 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 I'm not feeling anxious and I just want to move out of this. I want to feel better, right? So you want to come up, or let that come up and give it that space, and EFT will allow you to kind of bring it to the surface. Then you can shift your state to where you would like to be, right? And EFT will allow you for the second round of tapping to tap in a new emotion that says, you are worthy, or you are safe, or whatever it is that's kind of the opposite belief is feeding that anxiety for you. So yeah, I would definitely say EFT is a good source. Meditation is more of a not in real time solution. Of course, you're not going to probably start meditating, but I recommend meditation as just like anything. We all have our different ways of coping and managing. But let's say you're taking medication for anxiety. Well, meditation is another way of changing that chemistry and setting up a foundation for yourself. So when you're moving through your days, you have a more stable baseline and a more stable nervous system. So meditation can definitely help with that. And then real-time exercises could be, just coming back to the breathing, especially if you feel it in your stomach. Again, you want to allow that to surface, or it's going to keep manifesting there and then moving into that higher state. So yeah, and we can send you some exercises. Sky, if you want to grab her email, I can send her some real-time exercises for anxiety if that helps. And then meditation can be more of a baseline for the daily kind of practice that you're building on. Awesome.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. I'll grab that for you.
Okay, thanks. All right, and then yeah, I just want to always say thanks to our partner, NextGen EAP. So this is an EAP program that is extremely holistic, and of course they're allowing us to do this mindfulness training and bringing that piece into their holistic model. They provide behavioral health counseling, wellness coaching, financial and legal consultations. So it's really just a very holistic employee benefit versus kind of the traditional EAP, which is usually just focused on counseling. So thanks again to them for allowing us to make this happen. And then any more questions and conversation, we can open the floor. I know we're like right on time. Perfect timing today. Anything else coming up, Sky? Let me open up my.
Not that I'm seeing here. I think we got everything.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for attending. And yeah, I just want to say I'm really grateful for you and for the difference that you're making in your own life. And I always say in the difference that you're making in everybody else's lives by showing up for yourself and then taking this information, this knowledge and this practice and, you know, sharing it, sharing the love and sharing the wealth with others. So thank you so much for being here and enjoy the rest of your day. Oops.